gauge railroad. Narrow gauge refers to the train tracks we're rolling on, but only 3 feet apart from each other. That is a lot narrower than the modern American standard gauge, 4 gauge half inches. Narrow gauge railroad was very popular in the late 1800s because it was much cheaper to do. With narrower train tracks, you don't gotta get as much money. Absolutely perfect for electrical railroads like coal mines and lots of other railroads. Now, in a few moments, you're going to hear the whistle. While you're waiting for that whistle, this would be a great opportunity to get your tickets out before we get too carried away from the station. Please have those tickets out in your hand and ready. And I'll be right with you. So well as gathering everyone's attention now, it was adopted worldwide and still used this modern day every single time a train crosses the road, day or night. Remember, that's long, long, short, long. You're going to hear that every time we cross a road. Morse code to the letter Q. Watch out for those gooses. They're steep. They are crazy. Alright, have those tickets out and ready, and I'll be right with you. Thank you.
Through the woods down there. That's the standard gauge railroad. We run that in the summer for our beach train. It takes you right down to the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. Drops you off right in front of the carousel. In the summer. Super cool. There goes that little speeder off into the distance. Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Big Tree. That's the name of this location. I wonder how crowded. Some of the biggest, oldest coastal redwood trees left in this entire valley are right here. Coastal redwood trees are incredibly tall. In fact, the tallest tree recorded to this day is coastal redwood, just like the one surrounding this train. It's known as the Iberian Giant. That measures over 382 feet tall. That's taller than the Statue of Liberty at the Redwood stand. Very tall. Now, if you take a moment to look in the direction we're traveling, towards the steam engine, look up that way. Now, from this perspective, if you look to the left-hand side of the train, you'll be looking at nothing but a bunch of trees. But now you know the left and right-hand side, you know we reference throughout this trip. Good job. If you're on the left-hand side of this train, you know who you are if you were paying attention. You might want to have those video cameras out and ready. Because our train is about to cross the sharpest curving passenger carrying trestle in all North America. And y'all on the left are going to have a pretty good view of it this time. Now, if you're on the right, don't worry. Remember, we turn the train around halfway through the trip. Y'all on the right are going to have a similar view. We're coming down the mountain facing the opposite direction. But if you're on the left, this will be your chance to get a cool video this time. Just please remain seated at all times on this train, especially the trestles. Yeah. Anyhow, keep having those tickets out and ready, and I'll be right with you. Thank you. train kind of slowed down a little bit. Well, there's a reason for that. If you look at the locomotive right now, and then look through this car I'm standing on to everyone in the very last car. Wave your arms around down there so they can see you. There you go. Look at all those cool people. See them way down there? Right now, the locomotive at the front of this train is about 15 feet higher in elevation than anyone seated in that last car down there. 15 feet. That's because we're currently climbing one of the steepest narrow gauge trains in all of North America. Just one of them. This right here is an 8.5% rate. Now what that means is for every 100 feet the train is going forward, we're also going up 8.5 feet. We're gaining 8.5 feet of elevation. For every 100 feet the train goes forward, thus an 8.5% rate. And that's how you measure grades, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to algebra. Sorry. And once again, this is incredibly steep for a train, especially considering that most modern trains like Caltrain or Amtrak or Union Pacific, they consider a 3% grade to be as steep as they can possibly climb 3. Now this railroad, we consider a 3% grade to be pretty much flat. All thanks to that all-wheel drive Shay Locomotive at the front of this train. This steam engine was designed to do exactly this. Now a little bit later, we will be going up the steepest grade, narrow gauge grade, in all of North America. But I'll try to warn you before we do that. Till then, he's gonna blow the whistle here in about 5 to 10 seconds. If you want to get a little video, it's up to you. Anyhow, with the coastal redwood trees around you being so incredibly tall, you think they'd have some nice deep roots on them to keep them from falling over, right? Makes sense. Well, they don't. The roots on redwood trees only go down about 8 to 15 feet, that's all. The roots then turn up towards the surface of the forest floor. Then they spread up to 200 feet in every direction around them, interlocking with all the other trees around them as well. Kinda neat, huh? Now the reason why the roots on the redwoods are so shallow is the same reason why the leaves on redwood trees look like little needles. It's also the same reason why coastal redwoods only really exist about 2 to 10 miles from the coast of the Pacific Ocean. It all has to do with the fog. Every single night, fog from the Pacific Ocean will roll in over these magnificent trees and will then be absorbed into the spongy bark of the redwood. It'll also be absorbed into those needle-like leaves. However, the excess fog will then collect up on those needle-like leaves, where it can easily drift down to the forest floor. And that's where those shallow roots can efficiently pick up to 500 gallons of water a night for these larger trees to survive. That's a lot of water. That's why the fog is so important to those coastal redwood forests. lifespan of a coastal redwood tree in most places is only about 750 years, that's all. But here in this particular valley, because we receive fog every single night, these amazing redwood trees here can survive for up to 2,600 years. That's a little longer, huh? Yeah, just a little bit. And if you think that's old, that ain't nothing. The roots on the redwoods are much older. In fact, they're the oldest living things on planet Earth. The roots of the coastal redwood can survive in the dirt for up to 10,000 years. How this works is kind of neat. How do the roots live longer than the tree? Well, I'll tell you. If you look at the base of a lot of these coastal redwood trees out here, especially the bigger ones, you will see a bunch of cute little baby redwood trees, sprouts growing out of the base of the redwood trees in a circle around the stump. Well, that's the root system of that tree, getting ready for the tree to get to its mature age and fall over. Once that occurs, the roots then send all of their energy to those cute little baby redwood tree sprouts, which will be quickly matured into a very small circle or cluster of redwood trees, known as a cathedral grove of redwoods. Now this keeps repeating every 2,600 years, each time making a slightly larger cathedral grove or circular tree. Until after 9,000 years, you're left with a giant circle of redwoods, large enough to host a wedding. This is actually how redwood trees reproduce about 85% of the time through their roots by producing genetic copies of each other. So yes, anytime you see a circle of redwood trees, all those trees standing in that circle have the exact same DNA because they all came from the same root system. Now, did you feel that? Feeling the train kind of slowing down a little bit? What you're feeling is it's slipping. Yes, the locomotive can't slip. Especially on a wet day like today, the rails are extra slippery. So to counter this issue, all trains in North America that I'm aware of are equipped with sanders. Yes, little sand from your playground. If you look at the back of the steam engine when you can, you'll see two black hoppers on the back of the locomotive on either side of the number one. Those are the rear sanders for when the locomotive is going backward. The big dome on the front of the steam engine, right behind the smokestack, is the front sander also for the sand going forward like we're doing right now. If the locomotive starts slipping and the engineer catches it quickly, he has an air valve that takes the sand out of either spot. Drop the sand in front of the front wheel of the locomotive if we're going forward, or the rear wheel of the locomotive if we're going backwards. There was a really good slip right there. You feel that? That's what I'm talking about, right there. Now, if the engineer catches it quick enough, like he just did, the locomotive will then run that sand over, which will then crush under the weight of the engine, which gives us just a little bit more traction. All steam trains and all modern trains are equipped with sanders to this day. That's why when you go to the train station, if you look at the tracks really carefully, right about where the locomotives usually stop, you'll see these little piles of sand. Our train is now quickly approaching the locomotive railroad built at Spring Canyon. Spring Canyon used to be the home of our famous corkscrew trestle system, which is a really fancy name for two-way train bridges that actually cross over each other while forming a giant loop. That's when the train was long enough. The locomotive at the front of the train would go right over this last car I'm standing on, with both of them being on different bridges. Think about that. It was a really tight turn. It also worked great at gaining elevation on our little railroad. It only had a rolling rate of about 6%. But unfortunately, this all came to a halt one day in 1976 when mysteriously both of those trestles were engulfed in a 300-foot fireball that burned for 3 days. Once the fires were extinguished, both of our trestles out here were deemed as complete losses. As you are about to see, they're just standing pieces of charcoal in the woods. Now, this presented Roaring Camp with a pretty interesting problem. That problem being that we can no longer get our train up or down this mountain because somebody has literally burnt our bridges. That's why you don't do that. So, to temporarily bypass these old burnt down trestles, our track crew back in 1976 decided to build a switchback on the hillside to our right, staying true to a narrow gauge logging railroad lookalike. But because of the geography here in Spring Canyon and the placement of the larger trees, that switchback had to be a little steep. Actually very steep. But our track crew back in 1976 was a little overconfident in the abilities of our logging locomotives and thought, we can make it up any hill we prove these things. So they didn't take any measurements at all the whole time they built that switchback until they completed it 6 months later. And that's exactly the time that track crew found out that they had accidentally built the steepest pair of narrow gauge train tracks in this entire continent, possibly even the world. Whoops. And we're about to go up fully loaded. Completely backwards. That's right, backwards, making Roaring Camp the most backwards railroad you'll ever ride. So once again, please remain seated and hold on tight as we attempt to make it up this 10.5% grade coming up on our right. With this hill being as steep as it is, it usually takes poor old engine number 1 about 2 to 3 attempts to make it up this hill when it's dry out. Once again, please remain seated because it's about to get incredibly bumpy. But as we're rolling into Spring Canyon, be sure to look out for those old burnt down trestles. There's 2 out here, both imaginatively named the high trestle above you and the low trestle below you to the left. Now, one thing to keep in mind as we're going up these tracks is your poor engine crew. Right now, your engineer Steven and your fire and Russ are sitting about 5 feet from a fire that's raging at 2,750 degrees, you know, to boil the water. The boiler. Ready to make the steam. Fortunately for them, the boiler itself is only radiating heat at about 500 degrees, that's all. This, of course, brings the ambient temperature inside the small wooden cabin of that steam engine down there to a nice, comfortable 130 to 160 degrees all day long. So, keep that in mind as we're going up the steepest pair of narrow gauge train tracks in this entire continent, fully loaded backwards on a curve that your engine crew is literally making for your entertainment. Don't worry, we wouldn't be here if we didn't want to be. But at least now you know why I'm a conductor. Ooh, we're still going, ladies and gentlemen. Cross your fingers. Knock on wood. Oh, we're slipping a little. Uh-oh. Oh, but we're still going. That's your engineer, Steven, right there. Wow. Holy guacamole, ladies and gentlemen. Did you all skip lunch today? Thank you if you did, it does matter. Because we're rolling into Hallelujah Junction in one try on a rainy day. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give those poor sweaty guys in the cab a nice round of applause. They're showing off for you right now. They appreciate it too. They just don't have a fancy microphone like me. Those poor guys. Now with this large triangular shape. Ooh, a banana slug. On the hillside on her right. There you go, sorry. Now with this large triangular shaped 181 acre piece of property we're riding our train through today, never being logged. Ever. It's home to a whole bunch of cute little fuzzy woodland critters that like to scurry away from this giant yellow snake that we're all riding right now. Critters like foxes, squirrels, skunks, raccoons. We also have North America's only native marsupial on this piece of property. That's right. I'm talking about those happy, humble, fabulous possums. And before you go, ew, possums, please hear me out here. Possums are pretty awesome. Because they're marsupials, they have a lower body temperature. Because possums have a lower body temperature, it's nearly impossible for them to contract rabies. Possums also eat fleas and ticks. They eat them, and they don't get Lyme disease. Now what this means is that possums help keep those populations under control in the wild. So ladies and gentlemen, if you don't like fleas, ticks, or rabies, which you shouldn't, then maybe you should be a little nicer to North America's only native marsupial, those fabulous little possums. And yeah, I know the O is silent. I just like saying it, deal with it. We also got bobcats, tomcats, mountain lions, mountain cougars, deer, coyotes, antelopes. And if you look really carefully at the trees around us, not to be confused with the hairy men of Santa Cruz County, you may spot yourself a Sasquatch too. Yeah, Bigfoot, he's out here. We're getting watching us right now. So please don't litter, because littering's for losers. Sasquatch ain't litter bugs. Okay, back to redwood trees for a change. So they reproduce through their roots about 85% of the time. This produces genetic copies of each other. So to help create genetic biodiversity, redwood trees reproduce through seeds only 15% of the time. The reason why that percentage is so small has to do with all the dead sticks and leaves on the forest floor around us. That thick layer down there is known simply as duff, spelled D-U-F-F, just like Homer Simpson's favorite memory. That thick layer of duff on the forest floor makes it a little difficult for those seeds to get to that dirt. So these trees get help from fire. That's right, when fire rips through a piece of property like this, it does a lot of good. The first thing it'll do is burn all the duff off the ground, exposing the soil, adding nitrogen into it, making it very fertile. Fire will then take out an invasive species of plants that are taking up valuable real estate on the forest floor. Fire will then take out any trees that are weak, because they are sick, harboring diseases. Once those trees are gone, not only does it make the forest a whole lot healthier, but it also clears paths for sunlight to get to the forest floor. And lastly, fire will release those little seeds out of the little redwood cones just a little bit more than usual, giving those little seeds nice nitrogen-filled dirt. The sunlight and space to sprout. However, relying on fire to keep your species strong when you're a tree can be a little dangerous, right? You can't really run from the fire when you're a tree unless you're in the Lord of the Rings. That's some weird stuff I don't want to get into on this train. Luckily, coastal redwoods have existed on this weird blue planet for over 240 million years. And in that time of existence, they've adapted to overcome fire. And one of the ways they do this is through that spongy bark I was telling you about earlier. Remember, it soaks in the fog every night? Well, on some of these larger trees, that bark can be a whole foot thick. This will insulate the inside of the tree from the extremity of a forest fire, kind of like graphite itself in a big red flame. But underneath that thick, spongy bark contained in the lumber of the coastal redwood is a very special compound that makes these trees worth an obscene amount of money. It's called tannic acid. Tannic acid makes redwood lumber fire resistant, rot resistant, termite resistant, and red and worth a lot of money. And for that last reason, when the loggers saw these gigantic, ancient, uncut coastal redwoods stretching as far as their eyes could see in the early 1800s, they did not see natural beauty at all. Nope, all they saw were giant dollar signs. And by 1920, they had successfully clear-cut 95% of all the old-growth redwood trees in the entire world. Yeah, only 5% existed in 1920, and even less of that today, which brings me to the main reason why this forest you're staring at is so special. This little piece of property here has been standing here unlogged and untamed by man for over 2 million years, and you'll be hard-pressed to find another piece of property as wild and uncut as this. Now you will see some trees that obviously have been cut down. The only trees we're allowed to chop out here are weak, sick, diseased trees that start leaning towards the railroad with the intent on falling. So we simply chop those trees down in the opposite direction and then leave them where they lay because we don't want to mess up the ecosystem up here any more than we already have. After we do that, we usually like to sign our initials on the stumps. So that's why you keep seeing stumps with random letters starting with them, so they know who to yell at later. Now while the train's here on this nice straight piece of railroad, take a moment to look up and down the train. Good to see y'all again, it's been a while. I'm currently standing on the end of the 6th car, way down here. There are 6 cars on this train, Which car are you in? So if I'm standing on the car way down here, what car are you in? Now when you look up towards the old steam engine up there, what side of that car are you on? Are you on the right or the left? And where in that car are you actually seated? The reason why I'm having y'all memorize your spots here is so that later you can use your cell phone with your selfie. No, that's not the real reason. But it helps out a lot, it really does. The real reason is, I'm going to let all of you off of this train for a few minutes up here at the top of Bear Mountain. While we're stopped up here, our engine crew will be setting up the brakes on all these rail cars for downhill travel. Once we complete that, you will then hear 4 whistle blasts from the steam locomotive, 4 woo-woos from the woo-woo machine. When you hear those 4 woo-woos, please return back to this exact same spot, ladies and gentlemen, because this is how we fit. If enough of your groups move around, there magically won't be enough space for all of you to ride the train down the mountain. Happens all the time. Also, you want to see something different on the way down the hill, right? That's right. So return back to this exact same spot, because don't forget, we're going to turn the train around up here. While we're up here on Bear Mountain, you'll have the opportunity to stand, or maybe use the back room. We got one of those up here. Or maybe you want to see a redwood tree. Well, we got plenty. Sweet. You may want to check out a steam engine. There's one around here somewhere. I'm sure you can find it if you try hard enough. Or maybe you want to see a cathedral grove of redwood tree. That sounds kind of cool, doesn't it? There's one right there. There's one over there. One behind me. Ladies and gentlemen, there are thousands of cathedral groves on this mountain. Technically, any circle or cluster of redwood trees you see is a cathedral grove. But up here on Bear Mountain, we're going to cruise right by one of the biggest, baddest cathedral groves on this entire mountain. I'll point it out to you, don't worry. If you ever decide to visit a cathedral grove of redwood trees, anywhere, ever, try to stand right in the middle of all those big trees and look straight up, and you may notice something kind of weird. All the big branches, all those big trees standing in the big circle, only really face the outside of the circle of trees. Well, since all those trees came out of the same root system in that cathedral grove, they're all aware that they're standing in a circle and that there is no light in the middle of them. So they don't waste the energy putting their branches where there's no light. Now, when the loggers saw the way these branches grew, it kind of reminded them of the vaulted ceilings of the cathedrals of their churches, which is how they got the name, the Cathedral Groves, which is a pretty fitting name considering we host weddings up here in ours. That's right, you can rent out this whole train, take it right up next to the grove I'm about to show you, have your ceremony down there, it's fabulous. Then you ride the train back down the mountain where you can then have your reception at the Brett Park Hall, 30 feet away from the train station. It really works out great for all your guests, because nobody's gonna drive all over creation, getting lost trying to find the reception, like my cousin's wedding. I got to test out the whole system for myself February 22nd, 2020, right before the end of the world. Talk about being married to your job, huh? It's okay. I know what I signed up for. Kind of good. On the right-hand side of the train, wondering about those other train tracks that split off from ours and head off into the woods. Where they go, well, they lead all the way to Hawaii. Now I know exactly who's paying attention. Not many. That's how we turn the train around. We're now entering the giant loop of train tracks at the top of the mountain. After our stop on Bear Mountain, we will make a giant right-hand turn and come back on those train tracks on our right, completely turned around, giving you a totally different view on the way down the hill. Pretty cool how we do that, huh? Our train is now approaching the 9,000-year-old Cathedral Grove of Redwood Tree. It's coming up on the left-hand side of this train in about 15 to 20 seconds for the first car. So be on the lookout on the left-hand side of the train for the giant circle of giant redwood trees that'll be directly next to you on the left-hand side in about 10 seconds for the first car. That's the one right behind the locomotive. As you pass by the 9,000-year-old grove on the left, pay attention to how close it is to the train, and you may notice that it's directly next to the train. That means that grove is directly next to the train tracks. Yes, that's how that works. You'd be surprised. Honestly. The first car is now passing the 9,000-year-old grove on the left-hand side. If you would like to visit that grove while we're up here, it's really easy to do. All you gotta do is walk down the train tracks behind the train. Please do not walk down the service road behind the train that doesn't have train tracks on it, because you won't find it like that my passengers do. Remember, the grove is directly next to the train tracks, so if you're looking for that grove and you can't see the train tracks, you're in the wrong place. So once again, to visit this 9,000-year-old grove we just passed with the last car, all you gotta do is walk down the train tracks behind the train along this lovely little wooden fence. When the lovely little wooden fence ends, you then want to turn to the right, and if you miss the giant circle of trees at that point, good luck. But please remain seated, ladies and gentlemen, until we come to a full and complete stop, and you hear one short whistle blast. That one short whistle blast is our engineer letting us know the brakes are locked up, so don't stand till you hear the whistle. While we're up here, if you hear 4 whistles, make your way back to the train. There's that whistle. Welcome to Bear Mountain. We'll be stopped up here for about 5 to 10 minutes or longer. Just listen for the... Once again, the brakes work on air. I'm going to watch a little air gauge back here to make sure I have continuity through the train, but if you listen close, you might be able to hear Engineer Steven apply the brakes. Listen for the escaping air coming out of the locomotive, then you should feel us. Not that escaping air. You should feel us slow down. Let's see. Wait for it. I'll try to point it out for you. There it is. Hear the escaping air up there? Hear it? See how we're slowing down a little? That's a good set, so I'm going to tell them. Engine 1, we got a good set. Kick it off. Good release, type all running air, Bear Mountain. See how the air compressor kicked on when I told you to kick off the brakes? Remember, it takes air to release the brakes. You take air out of the train to apply the brakes. That's so if the train breaks in half, which has happened to me, the airline becomes disconnected and open, you lose all the air, all the brakes lock on automatically. It's called the Westinghouse Automatic Air Brake System, ladies and gentlemen. Now, did you already forget about the view? That's okay. It's on the left, just a little ahead of where the steam engine is. And if you're wondering about all that steam up there, oh, don't worry, the train just blew up, that's all. No, it didn't blow up. I'm just messing with you. Whenever you see all that steam blasting out the side of the engine, the technical term for that procedure is known as a blowdown. And I'll tell you more about that when... a little bit. About 30 minutes from now, don't worry. Just don't miss that view on the left. And while you're checking that out, I gotta make my way up to the front of the train, because I have to change the train tracks up there to switch. And then I also have to do a roll-by inspection. We like to inspect the safety appliances of these train cars as many times as humanly possible on every single trip. So anytime you see me on the ground, staring at the undersides of these train cars as you all roll by me, try not to get offended if I don't wave howdy at you, because I really want to. It's just I gotta make sure we're all safe. Safety is the name of the game here on the steepest narrow gauge railroad in all of North America. See you soon. way back in 1867, a gentleman by the name of Joseph Welch bought this piece of property with the intention of clear cutting. He was going to chop all these trees down. But just before he decided that he wanted to show his wife how beautiful this ancient forest he just left was. So he sent his wife a letter. Her name was Anna. Now Anna Welch received that letter from Joseph way out there in San Francisco. Upon receiving that letter, Anna hopped on a horse-drawn buggy. Horse-drawn buggy. I don't know why that came out so good. She hopped on a horse-drawn buggy and then embarked on a 3-day journey to get to here from San Francisco. Yes, 3 days. Gotta love horses. Now, upon that 3-day journey, Anna passed through a whole bunch of pieces of property that had already been completely clear-cut. Basically, a bunch of desolate wastelands. For 3 days straight. So when she arrived on this ancient forest and saw these majestic, ancient, old-growth coastal redwoods stretching tall and proud like they had been doing here for 2 million years already, well, Anna, she thought it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen in her entire life, especially after coming from San Francisco in the 1800s. Yeah. Now, when her husband Joseph told her about his intentions to chop all these trees down, that didn't go over too well at all. Nope. Anna became awfully cross with him, rightfully so, and then said something along the lines of,
"It's a shame you're gonna chop down all these trees, Joseph. The way you're chopping them down, there ain't gonna be nothing left for our children to appreciate when they get older."
That's about what she said, yeah. And on that day in 1867, something incredibly special happened that didn't really happen every single day of the week in that time period, and unfortunately to this day. That is that Joseph Welch listened to his wife. That's right, take notes, gentlemen, sorry. Thanks to Anna, all these trees around here have been spared for future generations. And the Welch family, they still own this property to this day. That's right, this is private property. This is not a state park. That's next door, Henry Cow State Park. I think I told you about that already. So why are we here? Well, I'll tell you, that's my job. Way back in 1958, our founder Norman Clark signed a lease agreement with the Welch family, allowing us access to their beautiful family forest for 100 years. Also allowing us to build this recreation of a steam-powered narrow-gauge logging railroad right through the middle of it, not to log these trees, but to showcase these ancient trees and the abilities of our ancient locomotives to lovely people like you over there, or you looking at me like I'm a weirdo, or any of you. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules today to come on down here to write. Thank you all very much for coming on down here today and taking time out of your busy schedules to ride and support our little family-owned and operated business. Because without the help and support of amazing individuals like all of you, we wouldn't be able to keep these pieces of history rolling at all. So thank you for coming on down and experiencing the Redwood Forest narrow gauge steam train. You guys are amazing. Thank you. just changing direction.
We're now heading down the 10.5% grade, the steepest pair of narrow gauge train tracks in this entire continent. Please remain seated and hold on tight. This can become the roller coaster portion of our ride. Whee! No, not really. But now that our train's heading back down to Spring Canyon, you'll be able to see those old burnt down trestles again. And if you're wondering to yourself, hey, self, I wonder why Roaring Camp never rebuilt their cool bridges. Well, that's a great thing to ask yourself. First off, I'll tell you, we've always wanted to rebuild these old trestles out here, and we still want to rebuild them to this day. It would take a lot of wear off our engines. It's just that back in the day, they never actually caught who was responsible for lighting these things on fire in the first place, and they were scared that they were going to come back and do it again. Now, the only reasons why we're pretty sure it was arson are pretty simple. Here they are. Reason number one, there were 9 other trestle fires in California that same week that all lined up on a map in a straight line, with ours right in the middle. Little too coincidental there, huh? Reason number 2, which makes it much worse, is that those 9 other trestle fires were all located on active logging railroads, which we've never been. We're just a recreation of one, but I guess a good recreation, because we fooled those guys, didn't we? Reason number 3, and the most obvious reason, was all the empty gas cans we found under the trestle after we extinguished the fire. Kind of points at arson a little bit. But if you'd like to see any photographs of what these spectacular trestles looked like when they were in operation from only 1966 to 1976, you're in luck, because we just built a little makeshift museum out here at Roaring Camp for the first time in 60 years. It's in the back of the general store. And in the corner of that museum is a little glass cabinet that is absolutely loaded with photographs of these trestles when they're in service. There's also a whole bunch of other neat stuff in there you should totally check out if you got the spare time, because it's totally worth it. And that's because it's totally free. Haha, everyone loves free stuff. So check out that little museum in the back of the general store. It's definitely worth it. So right now, our train is actually in the middle of the giant loop that these 2 trestles formed. That's right. If you look towards the last car in the train, about even with the roof line, you'll see these little flat spots on either side. That's the old right-of-way on the big right-hand turn from the low trestle to the high trestle. Here, I'll try to point it out to you. Look at me in the middle of the train. Yo. Ahoy. So the trains went on the low trestle from left to right. The low trestle then passed underneath the high trestle, right about where I'm pointing right now, if you look at me. Right over there. The train tracks and hit that little shelf of dirt where you can actually still see the train tracks right over there, because we actually never removed them, because we're actually a little lazy. Highball one. The train tracks had made a sharp right-hand turn and passed directly over the roof line of the last car where it's sitting right now. They continued on that right-hand turn, now above us on the left, to the high trestle on our left, where it went over this whole valley once again. Now back in the day before we had the switchback, this was an uninterrupted railroad. Nowadays we can only really fit 6 cars on this track to go up the switchback, but honestly I don't think we can fit anything else up that hill considering we barely get down to this. But back when the trestles were working, once again that was only a 6% grade and an uninterrupted railroad. And it was a common practice to run a 14-car train up this hill, pulled by not 1 but 2 steam engines at the same time. That's when the locomotives at the front of the train would go over the last car, with both of them being on different trestles. Once again, if you want to see any photographs of this, you know what to do. That's right, free museum. Thanks for paying attention. Now, if you've ever seen any movies portraying the Old West, where they're building those train tracks by hand all the live long day, you already know exactly the way we maintain this narrow gauge railroad here, by hand. This is 19th century technology with a narrow gauge railroad, meaning they didn't really make much modern track equipment for this kind of setup.
So the next time you're watching one of those corny old Western movies where they're building those train tracks by hand all the livelong day, you can think of us, poor employees here at Roaring Camp Railroad. I did get a pay for my gym membership though. It saves me a few bucks. And that's important, because work and pay like this keep you as thin as a rail. Now, one of the tools we're using when we're working on these old train tracks is known as a spike maul. A spike maul is a 9-pound sledgehammer. In fact, it's the infamous 9-pound hammer you hear about in all those old folk songs. It has a 4-foot handle. The faces of the hammer are extended out by 8 inches on both sides of the hammerhead, but are only about an inch wide. If I lost you in there, that's okay. This tool looks exactly like a giant capital letter T. T as in trains. Yeah. Now this tool is used to drive the railroad spikes into the wooden ties underneath the rail to hold the rail in place. But to drive those railroad spikes into that wooden tie, man, you've got to swing this giant hammer behind you, bring it up and over your shoulder, and then bring it straight down in front of you in a giant circular motion with extreme amounts of force. But more importantly, accuracy. Because if you're off by just a few millimeters to the left, right, front, or back when you swing that giant hammer down on that tiny little railroad spike, you're actually going to shoot the railroad spike out of the tie and Mach 3 into your coworker's shin. You probably got all those scars. Good time, not really. Now the first time you ever handed a spike ball, it's an impossible tool to use. You are swinging that thing wildly. Can't really hit a thing. Your coworkers are laughing at you, pointing and dodging rope spikes for their lives. And you're looking at them as if they were superhuman, wondering how in the world are they actually swinging that giant hammer with such force and accuracy. Well, I can tell you, after a few years of practice with this horrible tool, unfortunately of which I've had, eventually you get the swing of it. Pretty bad, huh?
Yeah.
Did we warn you that this was the Terrible Pun Express? No? Sorry. But don't worry, there's not much longer left of this trip, ladies and gentlemen. Just keep an eye out for the ROUSs. They're out here, they'll get you. Getting some blank concerned stares from someone. Talk about the rodents of unusual sizes. Come on, this place looks and sounds just like the fire swamp. It's quite lovely. Our train is now approaching a very special tree that's leaning over the railroad at a 40-degree angle. See that there? We've imaginatively named it Leaning Tree. And every time the crews pass by it, we all have our own weird rituals to keep it from leaning over anymore. It actually blocks the railroad. I personally like to kick it, because that's how I roll. I like to kick it.
Oh, I did it!
But once you pass Leaning Tree, be on the lookout on the right-hand side for one last quick break in the trees that will allow all of you one last quick glimpse of this entire valley, just in case you missed that earlier. Don't want y'all to miss nothing out here. And if you'd like to have a little video of your locomotive whistle in action, our engineer Steven should be wailing on that whistle for the Grizzly Flats crossing here in about 15 to 20 seconds. Ooh, it's nice and clear. You can really see the bald spot today. Here comes that whistle. Remember, that's the letter Q in Morse code. That's long, long, short, long. Every time a train crosses the road, day or night, we legally have to blow that signal. Now, trains can move quicker than 10 miles an hour, like Caltrain or Amtrak or Union Pacific. They legally have to blow that signal you just heard for at least 15 seconds before they actually cross the road. So that's why if you live near train tracks, those horns seem so drawn out all the time. It's because we got to do that legally. We're sorry. But the next time you hear that whistle, in theory, our train should be crossing the sharpest curving passenger carrying trestlet off North America again, this time giving all of you on the right-hand side of this train a fabulous opportunity to get a video, just like everyone on the left-hand side of the train had earlier if they were paying attention to anything I was saying. Sorry, left-hand side, I tried to warn you. This will be the right-hand side's chance. But please, remain seated for the remainder of this trip. But in particular, on the trestle. The trestle is 210 feet long. It's also 42 feet tall, and it's a little difficult to stick the landing from 42 feet in the air. I knew a guy who tried once. The key word there was new. So please remain seated. If you're concerned about me running around this train, hopping on and off this thing like a wild man, thank you. I do appreciate your concern. But y'all don't gotta worry about little old me, because I have terrain aid that helps keep me safe. We're not out of the woods yet, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, it's all downhill from here. Alright, there's that old trestle down there. Really tight turn, huh? See how much elevation we gained too? Pretty steep. Now, I don't know if you've ever accidentally boiled a whole pot of water down to nothing, like I did last night attempting to make mac and cheese. But if you've done this, you'll find at the bottom of that pot, once all the water has evaporated out, is a bunch of random minerals that are naturally occurring in the water. They get left behind, right? Well, the same thing occurs to a steam locomotive, especially after you boil away 700 gallons of water like we just did going up and down this mountain once. It leaves a whole bunch of random minerals at the bottom of that locomotive's boiler that really mess up these old steam engines really bad. So, to help counter this issue with all steam engines I'm aware of are equipped with a very special valve, known as a blow-down valve. It's basically a large hole at the lowest point of that locomotive's boiler, where all that sediment likes to build up. And when our fireman Russ opens up that special valve, it lets a whole bunch of water and steam jet out of the side of the boiler, with 200 pounds of pressure behind it, taking all that sediment right out of the boiler with it in a giant cloud of steam like you all saw on top of Bear Mountain. Remember? Told you I'd tell you about it. In a few moments, the train is gonna stop. Once the train stops, I gotta run up to the front and change the train tracks again, just like I did up there at the top of the mountain. Once I change the train tracks, the train's gonna begin to roll. And that's a fabulous cue for all of you to start filming. Because about 20 seconds after we begin to roll, our train is going to cruise right next to a little man-made lake. And if no one's standing right there, that's usually where our fireman Russ likes to let that blow down, go down. So have your camera ready when we begin to roll, because you won't want to miss this. and gentlemen, the cleanest ducks in the entire western United States. That's right, we stay clean here. Look at them, they love it. Till they get too close, then become a spec. If you're feeling a little hungry or thirsty out here, incredibly long journey in our short railroad, you may want to stop by Georgie's Cookhouse here in town. They should be open, offering the finest amusement park food and refreshments in all of Melton. And don't forget about that lovely little museum I told you about. It's in the back of the general store. It's definitely worth checking out. You know why. As we roll into the old train station here, please remain seated. We have to line up this. We have to line up this old steam engine perfectly with that water tower to fill it up with another 700 gallons of water for tomorrow. So once again, please remain seated until you hear one short whistle blast. Especially as we pass through this right-hand turn here. This right-hand turn being so close to Henry Cow State Park is the most dangerous turn on this entire railroad. It's so dangerous we've actually named it, we call it the return.